Welcome. Yes, my name is Kenn. I work at HQ. I'm part of the team that builds the CMS. I'm just going to start a timer here because then I know sort of that I won't keep you from lunch. So I am going to tell you about the future of search within the Umbraco space. And that's a mouthful. But the thing is, we've been talking about this, at least internally, for a long, long time. And in the beginning of this year, there was an RFC process going on. And if anyone here attended or participated in that, thank you very much. Your feedback means a lot to us when we're shaping these changes. So, we're currently in the implementation phase based on that RFC. For now, it's closed source, but we will be open sourcing it eventually. But what are we doing? Well, Callum touched upon this a little bit, a fair bit, to be honest. Anyone who's done anything with search in Umbraco will know that this is the state of affairs currently. We have Examine and Umbraco, and they're extremely tightly coupled. I mean, if you want to do anything with search, you either have to reinvent the wheel, or you have to funnel it through Examine somehow. And that is, it's fine, it's well, and again, I will echo and mirror what Callum said. Lucene.net and in turn Examine as an abstraction layer, that is the absolute best option we have available today for an in-process, open source search engine and search provider that we can ship with Umbraco. But the problem is that we are so tightly coupled with it. So the first thing we're doing, very impressed with my own slideshows here. The first thing we're doing is we're building an abstraction layer between Umbraco and Examine. So yes, again, as Callum said, we're not booting Examine. We are keeping Examine as the default search provider for Umbraco. But we want to own the abstraction between Umbraco and whatever search provider will be. So we want to define what we expect a search provider to do. We don't want to have to do whatever the search provider tells us, basically. This, of course, allows for you to build new search providers on top of the same abstraction layer and add them into the mix of whatever you're doing for your specific sites. And even more to the point, if you don't want Examine in there at all, you can just remove it. So this is where we are going with search. And while we're going there, we are adding features because everybody loves features. I love features. And the first feature is really not a feature because full text search obviously will be part of new search. That's a given thing, that's not well on that. All the stuff Callum just showed to anyone who attended will be part of new search. Well, maybe not all of it, but most of it. So faceting and filtering will be part of the search abstraction layer and in turn powered by Examine. And here we mean by property in your schemas. So if you're in your document type or your media type or even your member type, define something that translates into a facetable value, be it a keyword or a number or a date or whatever. You'll be able to utilize those for faceting and filtering, or filtering, I should say. Languages and segments will also be supported by new search. So languages are supported today. Segments, not so much. I think it's high time that we embrace the fact that we actually have different levels of variation in the system. And of course, search should reflect this. I think it's a no-brainer. I also think it's a no-brainer that protected content should be supported by search. Today we are more or less throwing it away because we are afraid of exposing it to anyone browsing the site. Rightfully so. But the new search will have some concept of context, which means it will be able to recognize someone logged in, a member logged into your membership portal, and will be able to surface content only available to those members. So that will be a thing. And the last thing on this slide, at least, we want to understand property values, which is a really weird thing to say when you say it out loud. We want to know more about property values than we do today, should I say. Because property values are not necessarily just property values. I mean, granted, a number is probably just a number, and a date is likely just a date, and a string is probably a text unless it's a keyword. But then we have complex stuff like the rich text editor. And when you look at this, it's just a wall of HTML. Dislike it or like it, do whatever you please. But embedded in that HTML, there's a lot of structure, there's a lot of information that's super valuable to search. For example, a heading in a rich text editor is probably more relevant to a search result than a paragraph text. But we want this level of nuance in our understanding of property values with the new search. Hopefully this will bring more relevance to search results. Don't get me started on blocks. It encompasses everything. We're also building a ton of extension points because everybody loves extension points. I already touched upon search providers, and we'll actually be able to mix and match search providers as we want, which means we'll be able to run multiple providers simultaneously, handling different indexes for different things. This is going to be really powerful. You will also be able to define your own indexes if you want. If you need something very, very specific for a subset of your content doing this thing, whatever that thing might be, you can define your own index to do that in without affecting all the other ones. And this is ultimately an abstraction layer over search, not over content. So you can put anything you want into these indexes if you really, 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 really want to do that. We can have a discussion later if it's smart to put all kinds of stuff into your CMS search indexes, but that's a discussion we can have afterwards. So you'll be able to determine or decide, or at least influence, what to index. There will be a concept called content indexes, and we'll ship a few from core to handle system fields like a path and protection stuff, all the things that's needed at system level. And there'll be another one to handle all the property values that you want to index. And you can add your own content indexes here, and you can swap out the core ones if you dare. You can decide when you want to index. So another concept we're introducing is called a change strategy. And the idea here is there's a really, really big difference between indexing draft content for the back office for editors and published content for the front end for end users. When indexing for back office, you probably just want to throw everything at it. I mean, whatever state it's in, make it searchable, make it surface whenever people want it in the back office. For the front end, though, there's a whole bunch of context around a single document that needs to be in place before we can put it into the index. I mean, all the ancestors must be published for starters. It must be routable. There can be multiple cultures, and some may or may not be routable depending on other published states. And there's so much going on. So we have different strategies to handle this. Again, you can build your own strategies for your own specific cases, and you can replace the core ones, again, if you dare. So this is all interchangeable. And lastly, you can define or you can decide how to index values. So as I explained before, we want to understand property values better. So there will be a concept of property value handlers. And this is pretty much one-to-one a property value converter for search, essentially. So every build-in or every property that's going into search will have a property value handler responsible for taking the raw property data from the editor and turning it into something searchable, breaking it into different values that search can utilize in different ways. And again, you can build your own, you can replace the core ones. So for example, let's say you want to change the way text boxes are indexed. Maybe you have a requirement that the heading field should have greater value, relevance value in search than all the other fields. Well, you can do this by replacing the text box value handler with a custom one and make that more relevant to search. And it's actually just a few lines of code, so that'll be really cool. And we are definitely not done adding extensions. We want this to be highly extendable because it's if history shows or teaches us anything, it is that search is not a one-size-fits-all. It's more like a one-size-fits-one. So this must be very, very extendable. And I know since I made these slides, I added at least one more extension point in here. So there are definitely going to be more. The new search is going to be used everywhere. I mean, that's the gist of it. We want to put this all over the place, or to be a little bit more concrete. Of course, front-end search is going to be powered by the new search, as well as back-office search. And here I'm not only talking about the global search, but also search for collection views and search for content pickers. It'll all be powered by the new search, which should hopefully make it easier for editors to find what they're looking for. And then the lesser obvious use case here, delivery API. Today it's powered by a custom examine index, and given that we're sort of removing the current examine implementation, that will also be powered by the new search. So I think we've been summing up what the usage here is. And I also think we've been spending way too much time in slides. I, for one, do not like slides. So let's go to the demo instead. That's much more fun. And we will jump straight into code, because everybody loves code, yeah? Yes, exactly, everybody loves code. So this is a Umbraco 16 site. Well, it's not, this is writer, but this is a composer for an Umbraco 16 site. And I have installed a local build of the new search NuGet packages in here. And I'm adding that with a add search. And then I'm adding a search provider. And this is where you would expect things to say add examine search provider. So imagine it says add examine search provider. It's not done yet. We are still working on it. So this is a temporary means to an end. We've been using a very, very ugly brute force in-memory search provider to test out concepts and verify that what we're doing is sort of works at a day-to-day basis. And that's what I'm using here. It's good for demos and not much more. And since it's in memory, I'm then also rebuilding all the indexes at startup, because then they're ready to roll. Yeah. On top of this, well, here we have our Umbraco backoffice. I'm just going to reload this to make sure that I did not time out. I didn't. How fortunate. So we have a Umbraco installed here, and I have a collection of books. And I'm not sure I ever read any of these, maybe a couple back in school. So any which way, a book in turn has a bunch of properties. We have an author, a summary, a cover image, a published year and a number of pages, some kind of annotation of length, the nationality of the author, and some genres. And there are a total of 40 books, 30 of which have been translated into German. Here we go. And some of the fields here are shared between cultures, some are specific to the individual culture. Don't do what I've done here, ever, because this content model is inherently completely wrong. But it's wrong on purpose, because it serves, well, it needed to be wrong for demo purposes. So we have a shared property for the author, a culture-specific summary. For whatever reason, the cover image is not shared, nor the published year or the number of pages, which would definitely differ between different translations of a book. Oddly enough, I have made the length and the nationality tagging and the genres culture variant, which is completely bonkers, because they're likely to be exactly the same across cultures. You would translate them in some other way. But again, don't do what I've done. This serves a demo purpose. So that's the content model. It's a book. On top of these books, I've built a search engine. Look at me. And this sort of shows off what the search can do, at least at the surface level. So we have, well, fortunately we have some search results. We have some facets going on here, lots of facets apparently. This is my front-end skills in the making. some sorting and some free text search and pagination. We have what have you. Basically, we have what you would expect a search engine to do, hopefully. One interesting thing to point out about this is the era here. None of the books have an era annotation anywhere. So this era is deduced from the publish year. In other words, this is a range facet. I've defined buckets of ranges saying, well, from this year to this year, that's ancient history. From this to this, that's the 20th century. And the search engine knows how to bucket that up, if you will, and produce facet results in buckets. And of course, we have exact match or exact value facets here. These are the actual length annotations, the tags you saw in the back office, and the same for the nationality and that list of genres. But this kind of works the way you would expect, I hope. You can sort by stuff, like find all the A's here, maybe grab some of the recent books that are either, I don't know, short or quite short, maybe by a British author, and we'll have these two results by Virginia Woolf. Of course, if I wanted to find Woolf books, I could probably just search for Wool, and we would hopefully find that. Like, here we go, 2 books by Virginia Woolf. That's the front end. The back office is also powered by search. So I could go and I could search for Wool in the collection view here, and I would find the same 2 books, because, well, somewhere in here is a text saying Virginia Woolf. Or maybe more to the point, I could go search in the global search. I could search for middle. I'll find 2 results. I'll find Middlemarch, and I'll find the Lord of the Rings, because somewhere in there there's a summary saying Middle-earth. The sort order here is weird, because it's Umbraco that decides the sort order, and it's apparently not by relevance, because then Middlemarch would probably be more relevant, given that the title contains the word middle. If I then presumed to be a German author, and I went to search for the same thing, middle, I would find only 1 result. Are there any Germans here? That's just a few. Oh, you're scared. All right. The German translation of Middle-earth is Mittelerde, precisely, with T's. So we would find Mittelerde. We would find the Lord of the Rings in German. So the back office knows how to communicate the current context, current cultural context, and the search engine will then respond in kind in the correct language. So all of this hopefully just works once we get there. Okay. See, you're not thoroughly impressed. Let's do something else, back into the code. So anyone who watched the keynote would know that I built a typeset search provider for this thing, just to try it out. I also built a few other ones, and one of them being, I'm just going to stop this for a minute, Elasticsearch. So what I'm doing here is I'm removing the in-memory search provider, and I'm adding in the Elasticsearch provider instead that I built. And I have a Docker running here, Elastic running in Docker in the background, so that's all good. Now, this is 1 line of code. I have changed absolutely nothing else but this 1 line of code. And of course, behind that 1 line of code, there is a ton of code, because Elastic is extremely verbose. So the implementation carries a lot of code with it. But say, for argument's sake, that someone in this room made this search provider publicly available on NuGet, you could just pull it, add it in here, provision your Elastic, 1 line of code, and all the stuff you've done, hopefully, still just works. Now, remember that I am rebuilding indexes as a startup, so it'll start by populating my indexes, which it will create in Elastic. So reloading the front end, if we're quick about it, we'll find 0 results, because it's indexing. And now we will find 40 results, and these are now from Elastic. Again, 1 line of code changed. I've done nothing else. This just works. Thank you. And again, we can do exactly the same things, like so we can order by title, and we can find the recent books, and they must be short, and they must be British. And it's the same thing that's going on. But now Elastic's doing everything. Examine is doing absolutely, oh, Examine wasn't doing anything anyway. The in-memory is now not in play anymore. This is cool. Yeah. And Elastic is cool. Search is cool. When you bring in a specific search provider to your specific, use case, it's probably because you need something specific from that search provider, though. And I mean, one feature is out of process. That's a feature in itself. It's hosted. That's good. That might be the reason for bringing in Elastic. It might also be that you want to use something special that Elastic can do. And I have done something to my little implementation here. I have created a special kind of facet that Elastic is really good at calculating, which is a different kind of range facet, where you can explicitly specify your own range. But that only works with Elastic. So I am going to go to let's just stop this code for a minute, to the API controller that powers my search results. Wow, that sounds really in the screen. Okay, so this is where I am defining the facets that I want to use. And again, don't bother with this code. It's pretty ugly, but it's semi-on-purpose ugly. These are the facets that we've seen for now, some keyword facets for different fields, and the range facet for the era. And now I'm adding my integer minimum maximum facet from my Elasticsearch provider. Now obviously, this means I'm tying myself tighter to Elasticsearch because I'm using a feature that's only available in that search provider. But it's okay, because I'm still within the scope and the bounds of the abstractions. I'm not really doing anything else. I'm just using new features from that search provider. And again, if I'm using a specific search provider, it's probably because I need something specific from it. So you're already tied into it to some point. So that build, and we can run this. And this is where my front-end skills really were challenged. So the front end is pre-prepared for this new facet, so this is not magic. But I have chosen to represent this new facet as a slider. Ooh. Front end! Man, am I on the wrong team. Let me just boil these results down for a minute so we have something to work with. We have so that's the exact faceting still going on. It works, and we can combine that with our custom facets, and now we only have some books that are certain lengths. Again, all of this just plays together nicely, and I didn't have to tear my search apart because I wanted to use something specific from Elastic. I quote-unquote just had to add it to my provider and power it, and all the other things still work. And this is really cool. And there's nothing preventing me from going straight to the technology. So I could just as easily, definitely not as easily, trust me, but I could have gone and pulled the NuGet package for Elasticsearch and written all this querying myself. So there's no reason why there's a good reason why you shouldn't do that, because it's extremely verbose, but you could. You can just use the core Elastic querying if you need to do something weird and wild, but you don't have to. That's kind of the point I'm making here. We can still do provider-specific stuff while staying in the bounds of these abstractions. Okay. Right, let's try something different. Let's have a look at these books again. So, a book has a cover image, and this is just a media picker. And the property value handler for media picker does nothing out of the box, like absolutely nothing, because we don't really know what to index for the media. I mean, we could index its name, perhaps, but it's probably garbage. So we've chosen to index nothing. We can talk about that later, but the core does absolutely nothing with a media picker. However, my media, and this is where someone will frown, my media has an alt text. Wouldn't it be awesome if this was culture variant? My media has an alt text, and I really want this alt text to be indexed as part of the book that has this cover image, because it's a textual value, it adds value, it might actually yield search results. So I'll go ahead and I'll type Codegarden here, because why not? Save that. Now at this point, the media index is updated, because that's just a text field on the media. That works. However, by means of magic and voodoo dancing, I can now find my book here by Codegarden, because I have swapped out the core media picker value handler with my own. And let me just run you through some code here, because everybody loves code, yeah? Yes, thank you. Okay, so here's my property value handler for media picker. And this is a bit of code, because this is a slightly more complex scenario than you might encounter. But essentially, what I'm doing here is I'm stating, for starters, I can handle the media picker. And the search abstractions will pick this up, because it implements iProperty value handler, which is a discoverable interface. It'll pick it up and it'll say, now I have two. And it'll throw away the core one, because I have a custom one, and it'll prioritize mine instead of the core defaults. And mine says, whenever I am asked to provide an index value for search, I'll start by deserializing the picked media. So they go into some sort of structure by the core. That's the value, the raw value of the property. And then I'll go to the media service, and I'll get all the media that's been picked. And with those, I can grab all the alt text strings. Unfortunately, it's just a string, so that's really easy to fetch. Then I have the alt text of the picked items, and I can put that into an index value, and job done. This will be surfaced to the search abstractions and will be put into my search index as an explicit field under cover image. Now this runs whenever I save and or publish my book, depending on which index I'm targeting. But I didn't. I didn't save and or publish that book, because I have also added a notification handler. Because let's say, where is that? Let's say that your editors go about retrofitting these alt texts eventually. Or maybe you have an AI doing something in the background and it retrofits alt texts. And it would be really a pain in the something if an editor had to go and republish the book every time someone changed the alt text. So I'm using the notifications from the core. This is not part of search. This is in the core. So every time a media is saved, I am figuring out here what are the related keys for this media item. And in this case, related keys, at least for documents, would be the books picking that particular cover image. With those keys in hand, I can tell the content indexing service, which is from the search abstractions, to please refresh the document with this key. And that's all I'm doing. I'm not telling it where and how and when and what it should be doing. I'm just saying, whenever you fancy, please make sure that all indexes that are interested in this particular document gets updated for this, with this document. And that's it. So one line of code, I'm triggering a rebuild in all the indexes that might be interested. And this is why it works. Now we can go ahead and we can update our tagging or update our things on related items, and it will resurface on whatever picked it, because we can tie things together. I don't know, but I think this is nice. Woo! Yes, excellent. Okay, let's try something different, because why not? So I did say something about custom indexes. I'm just trying to figure out where I am on my computer here. Here we have our composer again. A custom index is defined, well, basically anything that messes with indexing is defined by the iOptions pattern. So we'll go into the services collection. Here we go, and we will configure the index options. Here we go, we need a method for that. Options something. And to register a new index, I will say options dot. I don't know what's wrong with this I mean, AI is good and all, but why would it propose something that doesn't exist? Thank you, AI. I'll register an index. And because this has to build, and it takes a little while, I'll just go ahead and register it, and then I'll talk you through it. So I'm going to use the Elastic, where is that? Indexer and the Elastic Searcher. And I'm going to use the draft. Here we go, and I'm going to give it a name, Codegarden, and I'm going to index some documents and so. Yeah, and then I'll build this, and hopefully, oh shit, that should be there. Build, please. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I am registering a new index called Codegarden. It'll be a composite index containing both documents and media. Whoa. Whoa. I love this. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. I feel like I'm on trial here. Okay. This is how we develop things at Umbraco. One build at a time. Yeah, any which way, I'm telling my options, so please register a brand new index, which would be composite for documents and media. And I want to use the Elastic Indexer. Whenever you do something, please invoke the Elastic Indexer to index. By default, I want to use the Elastic Searcher. So if I'm not doing something explicit, go use the Elastic Searcher for this index. And please use the draft content change strategy whenever a change happens. Essentially, just put stuff in there whenever it's changed. And we can run this. Dun. And because we have our Docker running, we have Kibana running as part of that, we should have an Elastic dashboard going. And with a little luck, I am still logged into that as well. And, well, all the indexes are rebuilt at startup, so hopefully we now have a Codegarden index. Good, we have a Codegarden index. There we go. This was generated. Yes, and we can search it because, search, there we go, because it's an index, and you can see, well, you can't see that. Maybe you can see that if I scroll it, it has documents in there. And, well, I did say it's a composite index, so in theory there should be media as well. So let's just query for media. Term query for object type media. There we go. We also have media in there. So, a few lines of code. We have a brand new index called Codegarden, and this index can be searched and worked with in exactly the same way as the books, the published stuff that I just showed you. So things are disconnected, if you will. But register an index, you can start using it with the same abstractions, or you can go straight to the technology if you need to do something super special. And again, this is where you would, if you have some really, really special requirements for when to index or how to perceive changes, you can build your own change strategy. We are working on making ours a little bit more extendable, a little more tweakable, so you can also hopefully tweak ours or create new ones based on ours with some tweaks that will make it easier. Because one of the really, really hard things about search is not search, it's indexing. And specifically figuring out what goes where, when, is really, really tricky. So the change strategies, they are complex, especially when it comes to published content. All right, we're actually making excellent time. So I will show you one more thing, and then I will drag you back to slides. Sorry about that. Because I also said that we can actually have multiple search providers running at the same time. And yes, we can do that. So let's do it. Let's go for bust. I am adding in my in-memory search provider once more. So now we have two search providers running. Now these are extension methods, and they both think they're right. They both think they own the place. Which in effect means that they are, whenever they're invoked, they will go ahead and do something like this, say, I am the one and only for these indexes, specifically the core, the known ones like draft content and published content and media. In effect, this means in-memory search provider just stole all my indexes, except from the Codegarden one, which is my own. So to mediate that, now let's say I really want the in-memory provider to handle all the back office stuff, but I want to use Examine on the front end, sorry, Elastic on the front end. Now to do that, we'll go and re-register the published content index. So we have some constants somewhere called published content, and I only want documents in there, and I want to use the published change content strategy. There's a word for you. So in effect, we are re-registering an index that's already been registered twice, but it doesn't matter because this doesn't really do anything except updating some stuff in that index option. So that's fine. There's no performance penalty in re-registering stuff. Everything else happens after the whole thing boots. So now we're saying handle everything in memory except obviously the Codegarden one and the published content one. Let's run this. Dun, dun, dun. And let's head on back to, well, let's start by, is it up and running? Yes, here we go. Let's start by making sure that our Codegarden index it's still there. That's good. That's one thing done. Our front end is still running. Now it's easy for me to claim that this is running Elastic. That's really simple, isn't it? But it is, trust me. I can also say that my Elastic provider explicitly indexes the word Elastic for every single entity it comes across, which means Elastic will match all of these books. So we could search for Elastic here, and indeed it matches all the books, so that's good. Elastic is still powering my front end. The back office, I'm going to reload this because if I'm locked out, it'll be a really sad demo. The back office, well, we can probably still find the wall. Wait, we're in German, brilliant. But we cannot find Elastic because this is powered by the in-memory index. So let's just reiterate here. This is not a whole lot of code. And obviously, behind these providers, there is a bunch of code going. But once you have those in place, or once someone wrote them for you, it's not a whole lot of code. And now we have two different search providers running in parallel, doing different things in different indexes. I think this is super powerful. And I'm really excited about this, and I'm excited to see what you'll be doing with it. End of demo. I will wrap this up with the most project manager me I can be. So all of this is going to be open sourced soon. Soon is a developer term. It means eventually. We will be releasing this as a package or as an add-on for Umbraco 16 and Umbraco 17. Because, well, first of all, it's a little late in the game to be messing with 17, but also we really don't want to be messing with the next LTS if we can avoid it. So this is going to be something you can opt into, and I encourage you to try it out and to mess with it and play around with it. We're not going to force it down your throats just yet, but at some point after version 17, we will be forcing it down your throats. Your trusty old external index will be gone. So you should probably consider opting into this whenever we're ready, soon. This also means that please get involved. When we have this out there, try it out, test it, report bugs, give us feature requests. It's so much easier to change things when they're in beta and when they're packages. It's going to be a lot harder to change once this hits the core, and even a lot harder once we have the first actual version of this. So if you're interested at all, please get involved when it's open. And that's all I had. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your patience.